It's time to find out if you're a casual fan or a walking fight encyclopedia. 3 levels, 40 questions. Let's touch gloves and begin. Time for the warm-up round. No takedowns here, just some classic UFC questions to get you in the zone. Who was the first ever UFC champion? Royce Gracie. In what year was the first UFC event held? (1993). Who was the first female fighter to sign with the UFC? Ronda Rousey. Who holds the record for the most title defenses in UFC history? Anderson Silva. Which fighter famously threw a dolly through a bus window before UFC 223? Conor McGregor. Who did Khabib Nurmagomedov defeat to win the UFC lightweight championship? Aliaquinta. Who was the first African-born UFC champion? Kamaru Usman. Which fighter is known as the Notorious? Conor McGregor. Who is nicknamed Bones? John Jones. Which fighter once held both the featherweight and lightweight belts simultaneously? Conor McGregor. Let's turn up the heat. These questions will test whether you've actually been watching or just reading the headline. Who holds the record for the fastest knockout in UFC history? Jorge Masvidal. Who did Amanda Nunes defeat to become the first woman to hold 2 belts simultaneously? Chris Cyborg. Which fighter was the first to defeat Anderson Silva in the UFC? Chris Weidman. Who was the first British fighter to win a UFC title? Michael Bisping. Who famously beat Brock Lesnar to win the UFC heavyweight title? Cain Velasquez. Which current UFC fighter goes by the nickname Stylebender? Israel Adesanya. Who is the youngest champion in UFC history? John Jones. Which former UFC champion also had a successful career in WWE? Brock Lesnar. What is the maximum number of rounds in a UFC title fight? 5. Which fighter is known for the phrase, "I'm not surprised," after a huge upset win? Nate Diaz. Championship rounds. Only hardcore fight fans make it this far. Prepare for some tricky shots to the brain. Who did Georges St. Pierre defeat to regain the middleweight title in 2017? Michael Bisping. Which country has produced the most UFC champions? USA. Who won the first ever women's strawweight title in UFC history? Carla Esparza. Which fighter once knocked out Luke Rockhold to win the middleweight title? Michael Bisping. Who won the inaugural UFC Bantamweight Championship? Dominic Cruz. Who was the first fighter to hold 2 belts in different divisions simultaneously? Conor McGregor. Who is the only fighter to win UFC titles in both heavyweight and light heavyweight divisions? Daniel Cormier. Which female fighter ended Ronda Rousey's undefeated streak? Holly Holm. In what year did the UFC introduce weight classes? 1997. Who defeated Tony Ferguson to become interim lightweight champion in 2020? Justin Gaethje. Which fighter holds the record for most wins in UFC history? Jim Miller. Who was the first fighter to defeat Conor McGregor in the UFC? Nate Diaz. Which fighter is nicknamed the Predator? Francis Ngannou. Who did Charles Oliveira defeat to win the vacant UFC lightweight championship? Michael Chandler. Which UFC fighter is known for the walk-off knockout style? Mark Hunt. Who was the youngest fighter ever to compete in the UFC? Raul Rosas Jr. Who holds the record for the most significant strikes landed in a single UFC fight? Max Holloway. Which former UFC champion also won an Olympic gold medal in wrestling? Henry Cejudo. Which fighter once defended the heavyweight title 3 times in a row? A UFC record? Stipe Miocic. Which UFC event holds the record for the highest pay-per-view buys in history? UFC 229, Khabib versus McGregor. And there you have it. How did you do? Are you a UFC Hall of Fame brain or still stuck in the prelims? Hit like, subscribe, and join us next time for more knockout quizzes.